Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Here's a story sent to me by almost everybody, so thank you, almost everybody. And I've seen this exact thing happen. And I've mentioned that before in a video, and I had several people say, Steve, didn't you once see this happen? Yes, I did. But here's what we're talking about. This story's from the New York Post, but widely reported. Judge dumbfounded when man with suspended license joins court Zoom call while driving a car. And there's actually two things wrong there. One is the guy's got a suspended license while he's driving, and he's driving while talking to the court. Number two, he's doing a Zoom call while driving. And in the state of Michigan where this happened, you're not allowed to be using a telephonic device whilst driving, unless it's hands-free. And I don't think this thing was hands-free. So Natalie O'Neill wrote the story. But she says his legal defense was a total car crash. A Michigan judge was astonished when a man busted for driving with a suspended license appeared before him in a courtroom Zoom call while driving a car. The 44-year-old man popped up on screen behind the wheel as Washington County Judge J. Cedric Simpson flashed a dumbfounded facial expression on May 15th. Mr. Harris, are you driving? He asks. I'm pulling into my doctor's office, actually, he says. Now, here's the thing you have to understand. Simpson is a judge that many people know about because he's one of the judges in Michigan whose how he handles courtrooms is entertaining enough to where people take the streams of his courtroom hearings and repost them online. So you'll see a lot of him and a lot of Judge Middleton, who's another judge in Michigan who just doesn't take guff from anybody. And I've seen this judge, and I could have guessed that he would not react well to this. I've seen many other cases where people have zoomed into various courtrooms where they've done things like they're sitting in a car and they've got the camera like propped up someplace and it's like a half shot of the top of their head and the dome light, but they're not moving. And I've also seen it where a guy was walking around outside holding the phone down by his waist, and because he was flipping the phone temporarily from time to time, it was readjusting whether it was portrait or landscape, and half the time you could see up the guy's nose, and the other half the time was just the sky up there. And the judge goes, excuse me, sir, can you please hold your phone up? And the guy go, yes. And she say, can you please keep the phone there? And he's like, okay. And he immediately puts it down, and again, it's doing the thing where it's flipping back and forth. So he says to the judge, I'm pulling into my doctor's office. After he parks, the judge then calls him out for flagrantly breaking the law. So then the judge says, maybe I don't understand something. This is driving a suspended license. And he's speaking now to the man's lawyer. So the man's got a lawyer who's involved in this. And he was just driving and he didn't have a license. Now, I did a video the other day about how attorneys will occasionally make dumb arguments. And the attorney then tries to make an argument. But it's a weak one because he says, well, those are the charges, driving a suspended license. To which the judge fires back, no, I'm looking at his record. He doesn't have a license. So the file's in front of him, and he's charged with driving with a suspended license. And of course, the court can pull the most recent record to indicate that the man's license was suspended and has not been reinstated. So the judge says, no, I got it right here. His license is still suspended, and I just saw him drive with my own eyes. And by the way, I asked him if he was driving, and he admitted it. That's a problem. So the judge says, I don't even know why he would do that. And then he revoked the man's bond and sentenced him to jail. Defendant is turning himself into Washington County Jail by 6 p.m. today, he declares, as the man's face drops and says, oh my God. Now, this article says Washington County Jail, but it's Washtenaw County Jail. Washtenaw County, of course, is where Ann Arbor is. Ann Arbor is the home to the University of Michigan. But it's a very, very neat little community, and I've been in this court many, many times. Not in front of this judge, but in that building many times. And I've known about this judge for a while. I've seen many of his videos on YouTube. I also know people who had him as an attorney before he was a judge. And apparently he's a heck of a nice guy. But he's one of these judges who just gets on the bench, and he's like, he's fair, but he's not going to put up with nonsense. He's not going to put up with nonsense. So I mentioned before that I was in court, and I remember the court. I can describe everything to you. I forgot what case I was there for, but I'm pretty sure it was a traffic case, probably arising from the Woodward Dream Cruise. There was a time when I offered to represent people who got tickets there for free, and I represented hundreds of people, literally hundreds of people for a several-year period. And so I'm in that courtroom, and a woman's case gets called. She walks up to the lectern by herself. And she walks up there by herself, and she identifies herself, and the judge says, you're accused of driving on a suspended license. How do you plead? She says, guilty. Judge said, okay, and here's your fine. Can you pay that today? And she goes, yes, I can. The judge goes, okay. And then the judge goes, why are you suspended? And I think she said she had some unpaid tickets. I think it was unpaid tickets. The judge said, well, you need to take care of that. And she said, I will as soon as I can. And he goes, okay. And then she leaves. And the judge actually turned to the bailiff and actually made a comment like, let's see what happens. And I'm kind of like, what? And I realized, there's a window. And this courtroom, the window was behind us. I've had courtrooms where the window is to the side. But now the judge's bench is facing right towards a big window at the parking lot. And sure enough, the woman goes to the counter, pays, walks out, gets in her car, and drives away. And so I understand that there are people out there who are in difficult situations. And it's just a dangerous game you're playing when you do it that way. So this guy says, I'm going to the doctor. Let's assume he's got a medical emergency. Before he goes to the doctor, he's got to ask himself, is it worth the risk of me being caught driving on a suspended license when I'm already facing charges for driving on a suspended license, especially when I call into a courtroom while I'm doing it? Now, the woman who said, I'll get it taken care of as soon as I can, I suspect couldn't afford to get it taken care of. But I believe she did pay that ticket that day in that courtroom, so she had that kind of money, but she might not have had enough to get them all cleared, because I know that in Michigan, after you clear them all, you've got to take the evidence of that to the Secretary of State's office and show them, and I think there's even a fee for that. And I understand what a pain that is. I understand that. And unfortunately, it can be oppressive to somebody who's just trying to get by. They've got a job, they've got bills, they've got rent, they've got kids, whatever it might be. And unfortunately, some people get caught up in that, and it becomes this spiral, because they got to work to get money, and if they don't work, they don't get money. So they're working, but they got to have a car to get to work, and they got to drive to get to work, And so it's unfortunate, and I have a lot of sympathy for people who are caught up in that. But when you get up in the morning and you're about to get in your car and drive it while you know you've got a suspended license, you have to understand that that's the risk you're taking. And so as your attorney, I'd advise you to not do that. But again, I know people who say, but Steve, I'm stuck in a situation that I cannot get out of because those things and costs are so oppressive. I've got other stuff to pay for just to live. So I get that. I completely get that. But I've also seen and heard of people before who've come to me, and I've talked to them, and they say, look, I got a ticket over here and a ticket over here, and I never paid any of them, and I think I'm in default. And it's like, yeah, you understand that if you show up and at least show up, you might get fined, and the judge will ask you how long you have to pay, and he might give you 30 days to pay. But if you don't show up, you're going to be charged for more. It's almost always more. And they're going to start tacking on fees and costs and reinstatement fees and costs and reinstatement costs and fees. Courts are a revenue-generating center for the municipality or the county or the state, whatever it might be. And I've sat there before in wonderment, watching the cashier's window while I'm waiting for a case to be called or something. And you watch people walk up, slide the credit card over. You hear the woman behind the counter goes, $455. Cha-ching, cha-ching, sign there. There you go, boom. Next person. $300. Cha-ching, cha-ching. Wow. I wish I had a store that made that kind of money. But another story altogether. So here we've got a guy charged with driving on a suspended license. His license is suspended, and he calls in via Zoom while in his car driving. And yes, like I said before, that's 2 violations. Driving is suspended, and using the camera for Zoom while driving is also a violation. So thank you to everybody who sent that to me. Like I said, almost everybody. From the New York Post, and Natalie O'Neill wrote that. Judge dumbfounded when man with suspended license joins court Zoom call while driving his car. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Live your life by a compass, not a clock.